Hello everyone, got the latest video coming out. I'm going back in history with this one. First, a disclaimer: nothing meant or intended for any legal purposes. This is all history, education, knowledge, fact, fiction, all from the past. But first, I'd like to thank my good friend Ram for sending me this. This is a badass hat and a very nice shirt. He has them available on get a hold of him on Instagram, Game Dog Talk on Instagram. He's got several different kinds. This is what he sent me. It's very nice. Rivals my own shirt and hat. So thanks, brother. This one is very interesting because I've spoken about the Boyles dogs. And I had them early on in my career, and I preferred the Boyles with the heavy Bolio in them. So this is going to be a Bolio versus Boyles video. Not so much as which one's better, but more so a contrast of each one. Everybody knows Bolio was stolen at one point, so the reason for me mentioning that is there's a bunch of dogs that were sired by him that he didn't get credit for. But anybody during that time that knew Bolio dogs, you could pretty much tell what a Bolio dog was. Their structure is different than a lot of other dogs, because they aren't the thick, squatty type. They aren't even the heavy-boned, big head, massive stifles like that. They don't look like a Kobe dog. They don't look like a Carver dog. They don't look like white dogs. They don't look like Bully Son dogs or Kingfish dogs, or even Eli Jr. Bully Son dogs. Not like Niggerino, not like, they're typey and their own they're their own, if you want to call it, their own family, or their own, I don't want to say generation, but they look like Bolio dogs. How about that? During my time in the dogs, they're unique because there's nothing else like them. There's dogs that are similar. They're more of the racier type, more of the terrier type. Heavy influence of Black Widow, with a little bit of Kobe through Heinzel. If you look at Bolio's top side, you'll see Heinzel. I forget the names of the dog, but you'll see Heinzel this, Heinzel that. But those were Kobe dogs that Heinzel got from Kobe because they were friends and they communicated a lot, and that was one of the main outcrosses that Heinzel would use with his dogs, was a Kobe dog. Solid, tried, true, been around for generations and generations, can't go wrong with it. All those cliches that people talk about the Kobe dogs in a positive light are true. And the Bolio dogs having that quarter Kobe, it helped them, because they're not, when you start inbreeding anything heavy, they could have a tendency to become fine bone. But the Bolio dogs on their own, even tight bred ones, they're not thin bone. They have good bone structure. They're solid. They're proportional. They fit. They have kind of a round head, half drop ears, some of them have a pointy nose, or more of a rectangular kind of nose, but not long to where, it looks like it would break if you just tap on it. They're just symmetrically and proportionally, they're almost perfect. Their shoulders, their legs from their shoulders come down at an angle, bend at the elbow, and they go straight down, which gives them, in my opinion, gives them good balance. The Finley's Bow from the So-So Boys had a similar build, and I would guess that they had good balance too. But the Bolio dogs, there's hardly anything wrong with them except um, flaws that could develop, and that happens with any bloodline. But that's the breeder's fault. You take things too far, too heavily inbred, they're going to lose ability, they're going to lose speed, they're going to lose balance, they're going to lose structure, especially. But Bolio dogs, you can breed them pretty tight. And if you do that and throw some crosses in there, you can keep it going forever and ever. There's different reasons why it's not so, there's not a whole ton of it. But anybody that has it and has had it for any length of time will tell you that there's a certain type of dog that they like, and even certain different builds within the Bolio dogs that people like, and certain styles. I liked them because they were good all-around athletes, put it that way. So if we go back in history to Bolio, I'll just name some, and then some of the ways they were bred, and give you an idea of, throughout the years, what people were looking for and how they bred them and what they liked about them. Everybody knows who Red Baby is, very famous female. She's off of Bolio to Goldie. Goldie was a Klaus bred female, along the lines of Klaus's Stabber. So that's one of the crosses that was very successful with Bolio himself and with the Bolio dogs on down the line. Kinzenbaugh had Klaus dogs, he crossed the Bolio into it. That's just one example. Other people use different Klaus bred dogs. Sometimes it's Stabbers, sometimes it's I forgot the name of the dog, but different. Even you know, the Klaus has a lot of OFRN, so even that works good with the Bolio stuff. And I seen some OFRN crossed with Bolio stuff that worked as well. El Dos Bits Cortaro was Bolio bred to Daisy. Daisy was Bolio and Sable. Sable is a heavy iron, not heavy, but daughter of Ironhead. So here we see Bolio bred to some more Carver stuff, different than what he comes from, because he's more heavily Black Widow and you know, Daibo type stuff, whereas Ironhead is his own thing. But of course, it's Carver, and it's going to work with Bolio, and it did. I saw a little dog named Red Danger. He was sired by Red Baby's brother, so he was only a quarter Bolio, but just his build, you see the influence in that. He had that leg on him, he had that head, that shape, the muzzle that I just described, like that. He was a jaw fighter, 2 times best in show winner, went over an hour each time. His second win was an hour 40 minutes against actually a dog from Boyles named Pepe Le Pew, who was out of the Bobby Jr. Dirty Mary litter. So Red Danger beat him in an hour 40, got best in show. And he was bred to the White blood. He was off of Ma or Sandy, I forget. Daughter of White Bandit, kind of the foundation for the white dogs. So he was from back in the day. Kincaid's Champion Princess was Bolio and Faith. Here's another Bolio Klaus breeding. Klaus via the Allen brothers. Some more of that Stabber and OFRN blood. Allen brothers are the ones who produced Tater and Faith, that stuff. What was the dog's name? It was Tater. Tater beat Indian Sunny, beat a Carver dog, but he had another one. They had another one. Beat Bert Sorrells, I think. Anyways, I'll have to look back. I didn't write it down. I didn't go that far. 2 famous studs that were out there were Bull Boy Bob and Commander Whitehead. They play heavily in the Bolio dogs. They're kind of typey in the Bolio. If you ever see pictures of them, Commander Whitehead is built a certain way, definitely a Bolio dog. Bullboy Bob is bred heavy Bolio also, but built slightly different, a different way, but also Bolio dog. So the little Ronnie dog that I got from Boyles, I would say he took after more of the Commander Whitehead build, right? Whereas some of them like Champion Hammer or some of the other dogs you see took after more of the Bullboy Bob side. And that, I think, through the years when you're breeding your dogs, if you focus on certain traits, that structure or whatever, even though they may have similar styles, you can have a little bit different structure depending on what you like. One could be more of a deeper chest, more squared up dog, thicker stifles, thinner stifles, longer leg, shorter leg, a little bit thicker head on them and muzzle, just depends. Some of the, going way back, some of the original ones when Indian Sunny had Bolio, H&H's Aunt Jane, which that was Bolio bred to Indian Sandy, and that would be a real early Bolio Eli cross. Sandy was a daughter of Eli Jr. Around that same time, Carver bred Bully's son to Mendocino. Mendocino is Bolio's sister, so they were making that Bolio Eli cross way back in the day. And then in Mexico they had Handicap, which is Bolio and Mendocino's littermate brother, bred him to some of the Eli stuff they had down there. So it was an early cross that was made. I think it's solid because of contrast in styles. You have the good all-around athlete with the barnstorming, hard-hitting type. Put them together, you get the best of both. Very hard to beat. Now Aunt Jane is, from that, I saw some dogs from her, like Bull, Rowdy. Rowdy was a 6-time winner. And those were good, solid dogs. Another one was maybe Little Sister, or I forget. There were several of them that I saw through Dan and Sonny, and a lot of these dogs were actually in Oklahoma area. So they traveled back and forth, Oklahoma to California, and some of them went to Mississippi. I think Danny won, got best in show with a little female, beat Barfield on a card either in Mississippi or somewhere in the deep south. Traveled all that way. I think it was the first time ever that a dog traveled by an airplane in the cargo. That little female that Dan used. I forget her name, but it's in there. It's in the record books. So those were a different type of Bolio breedings, if you want to put it that way. It was basically Bolio, Eli, and Corvino. Corvino through a dog named Tim, who was heavy Corvino bred. One of the last, I believe he actually came from Joe Corvino. One of the later productions from him. Altiers Tim was the dog's name. I have pictures of them. I'll put them in a book. That was an interesting cross because people like Indian Sunny and Bert Sorrells and even the guy who owned Larry McCaw, who owned Golden Light Barney, and Maury Rootberg, them guys liked the Corvino blood and kept it going for as long as they could. So by having that stuff, they made different crosses. If you look at Bert Sorrell's stuff, anywhere you see the Goldie bitch, she's a Corvino bitch. Well, if you see her, that stuff or her bred to Sorrell's Bull or Sons of Sorrell's Bull or whatever, those crosses, it's kind of the same thing. Because Bull is heavy Zeke. He's inbred Klaus's Zeke. And that's not Bert Klaus, that's Eddie Klaus, Klaus. Or Claus, if you want to put it that way. That's the who owned the Zeke dog at one time. So Sorrel's bull is double bred on that. So it's actually more Zeke than Bolio was, and Sorrel's has that connected to his Goldie female in his breedings. And Sonny did that with Aunt Jane and Bull and Rowdy and Little Sister and different ones, which would be a Bolio Eli Cordino cross, three-way cross. Kept it going. You look at some of the dogs I named, just look up their pedigrees and you'll see how they put them together. Now, some of the dogs I saw personally that belonged to other people, like Cat and Company and some other people, and Mark, Sads and Suds, they had the stuff from Bob Salisbury bred down from Roost champion Kramer. Kramer was Bolio bred to Sable. I think, who was it? Daisy, that I mentioned, was off of Bolio and Sable. Kramer was her litter mate, champion Kramer. Dennis Ruth, from way up north. He actually had Bolio for a certain amount of time. Of course, he bred to him, and that's where Kramer came from. But I saw several of those dogs bred down from that. Sammy was a two-time winner. Baby, Daisy, she lost at my house. Very game in an hour 35. Her sister or half-sister, I forget her name, but she was a 3-hour game loser. So if you saw these, now Sammy himself, he was more of a head dog, smart like that, fast, he'd move. He could fight rough too, he'd go to the front legs and the shoulders like that. Daisy was more of that all-around type who would go everywhere. Front end, back end, shoulders, legs, stifles, head, ears, muzzle, all that. Her only flaw, in my opinion, was that she didn't have a lot of mouth. But game is game is game, and very athletic. If she'd have had a mouth there, if they crossed her to some Eli blood, she'd have thrown some fire, I guarantee you. She had no quit in her. And the bitch, Lily, that was on her, a good bitch too, had good mouth, hard mouth, just bit her down, took her a while. Both of them scratched good. In fact, Lily was blind in one eye, or blind, almost blind in both eyes. You had to kind of face her up and point her in the right direction, but she never hesitated scratching. Good bitch. Her brother Sumo, I think it was an alligator bred dog. I forgot the dog's name, but her brother Sumo won 2 hours and 20 minutes. Big dogs, 54 pounds, big heavyweights, good match, just slam bang. You could hear them hit on the scratches. You could hear them, the damage being done. Just impressive. So Lily, and they were Eli bred dogs that had good air, had heart, for those that are detractors from that. Lily won in 1 hour 35, and Sumo won in 2 hours and 20 minutes. Good matches, man, I'm telling you, top notch. So that kind of stuff down from Kramer. They were double bred Kramer. Sammy and Baby were half brother, half sister. Again, bred to the Bolio, bred to the iron head stuff, heavy carver stuff, going back to Cracker and all that, you know. One of the early champions off of Bolio was Greb, champion Greb Robinson or Robeson, I forget. Champion Greb, who was out of Bolio, and Edsel. Edsel was bully son to Red Lady. And I believe Edsel is in the pedigree of Stinson and Glover's champion Tuffy. I think he's on the bottom side because there's a little bit of Bolio in champion Tuffy on that bottom side, and I think it's that breeding of Edsel, bully son to Red Lady, bred to Bolio. So that bottom side could be a litter mate to champion Greb, but he was one of the early champions off of Bolio. Just a rough dog, solid, good breeding. You see, there's different ways that the Bolio stuff was bred. So far, I've mentioned it's been bred to the Klaus blood, OFRN stuff, the white dogs, heavy iron head, heavy carver, more Klaus stuff through the Allen brothers, Kins and Boss stuff, uh, Eli stuff, Eli Jr. stuff, and Bully Son stuff, and in Mexico, probably to the Morphine Red Lady, Stu Fowler stuff. Of course, the Eli dogs down there, the early ones. So Bolio is one of those types, which, you know, most bloodlines you can do this, breed it to different things, and it'll work. But it all depends on who has them, what they do with them, the individuals themselves, because just as easily as these bloodlines mix up together and work in a positive manner, you can screw it up, and then they don't work, or they stop working if you're not using the correct individuals. So again, going back to that breeding, you have to have standards, stick by them, and go with the best that comes out of it. High percentages, high-spirited, high athleticism, gameness, ability, structure, teeth, all that stuff should matter whenever you're breeding dogs. And these dogs had a lot more positives than they did negatives. That's why they lasted so long, and that's why they could be used in so many different ways. Even the Tombstone Red Baby, which is just as a quarter Bolio, but being off a Tombstone, you got the heavy Daibo influence. So there's a commonality back there with the Maloney's Toot, being off of Spike and Black Widow, with the Bolio stuff on the bottom side being down from heavy Black Widow and her sister Granny. So that's why they work. And then you have that quarter out with through the Klaus Red Baby stuff. Ruth's champion Dagon, another early champion off of Bolio. He was Bolio and Tuffy. Tuffy was some more of that Klaus blood through Tater and Faith. Those are very popular breedings back in the day. Kind of different. And like I said, Tater won, beat Indian Sunny in a match, I think. It was over 2 hours. Another one would be Kincaid's Rolo, 2-time winner. Famous dog back in the day. People knew him, or if you had met Mr. Kincaid back in the day, just a solid dog, man. Good dogs. Bolio and Champion Princess. Now, Champion Princess was Bolio and Faith, too. So that's Klaus stuff via the Allen Brothers stuff of Stabber and OFRN. So you see similar breedings being made, where you have Rolo being by Bolio and Princess, Champion Princess, and Princess being by Bolio and Faith. So he was an inbred Bolio dog, 2-time winner. Good producer, too. Later on, all this stuff I mentioned, not all of it, but most of it, you know, we get into the, well, what was bred down from that? If you watch us on 78 Sports, you'll hear Bach talk about Rick Root. He's down from some of these breedings. Champion Hammer, I mentioned. I saw some of his stuff, too. Those dogs were more of the rough. They weren't dumb. They were smart, too. But they were rough dogs, you know. They would go in and get it. I seen a female. Didn't even fight like a Bolio dog. She was rough shoulders, stifle, big bitch too. And Hammer was a little dog, 33, I think. But I forget her name, but she was she was over 40 pounds, rough as hell, nice build, beautiful. That's one thing about those Bolio dogs. They're, to me anyways, beautifully built animals. I just love the hell out of them. I had one straight from the source. She didn't really work out. Her name was Molly. I lost to a 4-time winner in 37 minutes with her. But smart, move fast like that. And, you know, Rick Root is well known. Champion Hammer on the West Coast especially well known. See dogs bred. There's probably a good amount of that stuff still running around. The Homer Jr. stuff, of course, Vinny talks about that. He was involved in that. I mentioned that in another video if you go back and check. Homer Jr., good producer. Then the Invicto stuff, which I've heard that's all the way down in South America. Invicto cross with the Big John stuff, I think it is. That's just stuff I'm hearing. I don't doubt it, because there's a lot of blood down there in South America, a lot of the Mayday stuff, but I'm hearing maybe this was in the recent past. I don't know if it's still there, but that's what I heard. Invicto crossed with the Big John stuff is supposed to be good. And then one dog that doesn't get talked about a lot, one of the reasons I don't know a lot about him, but he's bred like a mint. Bolio Jr. He was Bolio to Red Baby. Two of the greatest producers in history. Of course, they got to have a Bolio Jr. in there somewhere, right? I'm sure he's in Peds. Now, speaking of Boyles, he was one of the first real dog man that would actually talk to me, give me advice, or just answer my questions, which was rare back in the day, especially in when you're in your own area. If you're a competitor or you're trying to get in with the dog man there, you have to pay your dues, basically. And if you're a competitor, they're not going to share stuff with you because they might have to go into you. They don't want to give you an advantage, or they don't want to help at all. I didn't like it at the time, but I could understand it. So it took me a long time to learn. A lot of stuff I learned on my own, but Boyles was one of the few that would give me information and answer my questions no matter how stupid they were. And some of the stuff he said stuck with me. Just through those conversations, he sent me a little dog named Ronnie. I've talked about him over and over again. I love that dog. I miss him to this day. Perfect example of a Bolio dog. And he sent him as a gift. He came on the plane, and this is later. I used Ronnie later as a model for the Jeep, Red Boy, Rascal, Bully Son, whatever dogs I had later on. Not so much the style, but the gameness, the heart, the finish, the intelligence. He was, when Boyles sent him, he told me he was 12 months old. Years later, he told me, I think that dog was 9 months old when I sent him. So he went through his whole career before he was even 2 years old. He was here and gone by the time he was 18 months. So, if I had gotten him years later, I don't think what happened to him would have happened. I wouldn't have lost him, for that matter. And he was bred to produce, and he's probably good to produce. At the time, if he had survived, I had some Bully Son dogs. I was going to breed him to the Bully Son stuff. I would have made that same cross that was made. Also, I acquired a Boomerang bitch, and I was going to do that too, breed the Boyles stuff to the Boomerang bitch, but she didn't work out, so that didn't happen. And I wasn't a breeder at that time anyways. I didn't even know how to breed dogs. The dogs we had when I was a kid, used for working cattle, they just bred on their own. We had nothing to do with it. You go out there and there was no, my father had, it wasn't really a breeding program. What he did was he just let the dogs do their thing naturally, and the ones that could do the work, those are the ones he kept. And one thing he did with them was from when they were very young, 8 weeks old, is he would have them with him and then pick and choose which ones would make the grade. And he could tell when they were that tiny which ones were going to do it. They showed their intelligence. They showed their ability to want to work and communicate and bond with my father. I mean, he could have them riding on the floorboard or on the seat of the truck or in the back of the truck when they were just a few months old, and use voice commands and whistling and in English and Spanish voice commands. So he knew his stuff with the cow dogs, we called them, which helped me later on. But at the time, I didn't, I wasn't really into breeding, but that was the plan. So Ronnie, very good dog, game as hell, good finish, had a good mouth, smart, tough, just good. If you saw him, you'd like him because he loved to fight. And that was one thing I liked about the Boyles dogs. They loved that competition, that confrontation, that one-on-one. Ronnie was sired by Haddock's Ugly. Ugly was a one-time winner, one-time loser. Out of Boyles' Bobby Sue. Bobby Sue, I think she produced at least one champion, or her sister was a champion, but she produced some good dogs. All of Ronnie's litter, Boyles told me, were good game dogs. I don't doubt it. Ugly was sired by Commander Whitehead and So Pretty. There's that Commander Whitehead influence. Bobby Sue was off of Champion Bobby Jr. and Miss Chainsaw Red. Again, Commander Whitehead, I like that build on the Bolio dogs like that. Kind of the red baby type, kind of that kind of build. So Pretty, here's the outcross in Ronnie's. So Pretty was out of Hammond's Rufus and Hammond's Champion Selma. Rufus, of course, is inbred William Satin Lady. Rufus is off of Alligator, Plumber's Champion Alligator, bred to Satin Lady. His mom, it's a mother-son breeding. So that's heavy Daibo, goes well with it. Hammond's Champion Selma, she's off of Hammond's Nino and Chambliss Red Lady Raven. I'm not real familiar with that stuff, but when I visited Gary Hammond's way back in the early 80s, I got to see, Selma was there, a neat little female, little tiny thing, 31, 32 pounds, small, like that. She was a 3-hour winner, and just a lady, like, that's how I like my females, you know, just to be ladylike, you know, petite, coy, whatever you want to call it, you know, act like a girl. They make good mothers, they seem to, you know. That doesn't mean that they don't turn on and they don't get down and they ain't badass, because we used to say back in the day, the bitches make the best fight. They're just tenacious and mean and nasty. But when they're not in that arena, I like them to be women, kind of like that, you know. And she came off that way, and she was scarred from head to toe. You could tell she was battle worn and all. Just a neat little female. So I was kind of proud to have her in there, because I had met Gary Hammonds, and I'd seen Selma, and Teddy was there too. He was another little bat-eared black and tan dog, tiny too, in the low 30s like that. I like them small dogs like that. So again, Bobby Sue was off of Bobby Jr., Miss Chainsaw Red. Bobby Jr., good game dog, a champion. He had a short win in 20-something minutes. He had a long win in 1:50. Miss Chainsaw Red, the way she came about, when Boyles bought Dirty Mary, he bought her pregnant. She was bred to 4-bits. Now, 4-bits sometimes is 4-bits, sometimes people say that's Bolio, so whatever it is, it's Bolio blood. So Chainsaw Red was either directly off of Bolio or she was off of 4-bits if he was real, whatever. To me, it didn't matter. So Dirty Mary came pregnant. She only had the one pup, Miss Chainsaw Red, who ended up being, he called her Sweet Pea, so we called her Sweet Pea, but her name was Chainsaw Red. She beat a 4-time winner, I think from James Han, in like 37 minutes. So again, got that win out of her. You see her in different pedigrees, you know, maybe what's your name? Limited edition, you might see Chainsaw Red in there or Sweet Pea. So this is basically the Boyle stuff that I liked. And you see the Commander Whitehead, you see the Bobby Jr., Miss Chainsaw Red, you see Dirty Mary. Dirty Mary was, you know, a quarter Bolio. She's off of Hank and Red Baby. And for me, that was his foundation bitch. Everything was based off of her. Whether it was Chainsaw Red, or, you know, those were the early breedings I think he made. The one that produced Chainsaw Red. He didn't make the breeding, but he got her pregnant. Got her, she arrived already pregnant. Dirty Mary did. After that, he bred her Bobby Jr. I think he bred it twice. And that's where you see Champion Toad and Tadpole, and there's tons of them. Butch and Tom Psycho, Pepe the Pew Dog I talked about. You got Indian Joe and 2-time winner, lost to a champion, and you have just a bunch of them. So I think he actually made the breeding twice, because there's so many dogs off. But what Boyles did is bred her more on the Eli side. I think he wanted to increase maybe structure and mouth for sure. So he bred Dirty Mary to Cherokee Chief, and he bred her to it's a breeding that produced Smokey. It was the from the Fork Farm. Heavy Eli dog. I'll think of it. He bred her to Euler Jr. or Euler. Cherokee Chief, of course. He bred, I think it was Chainsaw Red, bred her to that Son of Art champion. I forgot his name. He's a Son of Art. He actually beat Jocko's brother, Argo, champion Argo. Jocko and Argo were both 4-time winners. Argo went into his Son of Art. You guys can put it in the comments. And lost to him. And he was, of course, he's off of Art, bred to, I think it's some OFRN stuff. They bred her to, I think, to Chainsaw Red, and that's what produced, or Dirty Donna, or one of them. Anyways, that's what produced limited edition, I'm pretty sure. You can look all this up. And then I also got a bitch named, I called her Miss Smoke, because she was either off of Smokey or Smoke. Smokey was off of the fork-arm bred dog. Everybody knows it. I forget his name. Or his son, Smoke. Smoke was a 2-time winner. Beat the very famous Irish Tim's Derby, which was a Petronelli's Fox kind of champion snubby stuff, you know. So I had her down off of that breeding too. Same kind of built, good balance, half drop ear, got the kind of round head. I also had a dog named Blue Eye, heavy, Dirty Mary. And I called him Blue Eye because he had one blue eye, and that's one of the things about the Dirty Mary dogs. They'll throw one blue eye. Sometimes they throw 2 blue eyes. But you see it in the Hank dogs, you see it in some Colby dogs. It comes out. It's just a pigmentation thing. Doesn't mean anything negative, nothing bad. There's people, you know, is it a fault? No, it's not. It's just a color thing, right? So I had several dogs from him. I had Tank, who was a heavy boomerang dog. So some of them worked out, some of them didn't. And really, I was getting them at the wrong time because, you know, I made a lot of mistakes. And knowing what I knew later, I would have done things a little bit different. But things happen for a reason. It's a good learning experience. I love them dogs. They were great dogs. So I love the Boyles dogs. And I like all the Cherokee Chief and the, you know, the Champion Reno, and you know, I could have bought Bolt Action, and you got Grand Champion Queen of Hearts, you know, it's the Bobby Jr. to Boomerang stuff. All good stuff, but I always liked the heavy Bolio. Because Bolio, it's a kind of a West Coast thing. There were a lot of the dogs out here. When I got the Boyles dogs, they were heavy Bolio bred, but they were different and differently bred than the dogs out here. So that was unique. And then later on, of course, you have Grand Champion Handicap. And I think what they did with that was put more of that Bolio influence back in there. Because he's a kind of heavily Bolio dog. So it's a good pattern, you know, it's always good to go back to kind of the foundation. And that's what kind of Handicap is. Good producer, badass dog, you know, and it just continued. Now, what happened to the dogs after Boyles retired or wasn't breeding no more, or all that? That's up to the people. Some people got them and did good with them. Some people didn't like them. Some of them, like Champion Pandy, heavy Boyles dog with badass dogs. Some people, you know, it didn't work out for them. So again, it always matters who has them and what they do with them, where they come from. Because it can either keep the blood going or you lose it. So always have respect for Boyles, like I said, especially since he would talk to me and give me advice and tell me. He told me all about these dogs that were being matched. You know, he always offered them to me. I could have bought Queen of Hearts early on in her career. I could have bought Bolt Action. You know, I could have bought one of the Bobby Jr. Dirty Mary ones, you know. And I bought some, and a couple of them were gifts from him, Ronnie and Smoke Girl. You know, always represented him the right way. He never lied, never cheated, never, like some people you hear about doing. He was always straight up with me. Whatever kind of relationship other people have with him, I don't know. But with me, he was always straight up. We always got along good. I haven't talked to him in years, but we correspond back and forth every once in a while, He just an icon. For me, he's one of the better of the modern day breeders. He was during his career anyways. Right up there with anybody you want to name, in my opinion. Because he worked with a small yard of dogs and produced a ton of good dogs out of that small yard. He didn't have no 200 dogs, no 100 dogs, no 50 dogs like a lot of people do. Just a handful. And that's where I got that idea. Breed your own dogs. Those are the best dogs you'll ever have. And you don't need a ton of them. You can put more time into them. You can be more selective and bond with them better. All that. Those all were ideas that Boyles showed me and we talked about. So I'm partial to the Bolio dogs from Boyles, which takes nothing away from all the other Bolio dogs that were produced, and they were all over the place. You got Texas Express in Texas. They're all through Mexico, some influence. You got them all the way to New York with the champion Snubby Blood and, the white dog crosses, that produce like Red Danger. And you have Boozer. Boozer, I think, was off of 4 Bits. Mary Schaefer owned him. He was a badass dog. He 3-time winner. He beat Don Brote's Pirate. Pirate was the best in show winner. He had broke in an hour and 1 minute. He broke the winning streak from Marcy and the Sosa Boys. There were 18 wins and 2 draws. Pirate beat Boxcar, their dog, and broke that streak. And then he went into Boozer when Benny borrowed him, and he lost to Boozer in very game in almost 2 hours. So there were several of them. There's Tonka dogs out here, Trucker, and I saw a little buck dog in Louisiana. He was off of Tonka. Just a lot of them. Either heavy Bolio bred, half Bolio, quarter, eighth Bolio. The blood is so tight and can heavily influence your family of dogs that you don't need a lot of it. And it can make you change directions. You can go more heavier to that side, And people have done that. They start out with something, they use Bolios across, then they start going to the Bolio side more because they like the results better. Just real consistent dogs. I don't know what they're like today, but in my day, they were real consistent. Known for their gameness and finish and primal behavior and screaming in the corner. Good wrestlers. When you see them back then, when I saw them, well, you could tell they reminded me like of Bobby Chacon, or Manny Pacquiao. They just love to fight, get in there and throw down. So much respect to the Bolio dogs of the past and the Boyles dogs of the past. Let me know what you think. Once again, thanks, Ram. Hat, shirt. Hit them up. Hit me up for my new book on Facebook Messenger or any of my books. And I still have all my books and keep and shirts and all that sticks on Facebook Messenger or my email, richardjschoolboy60@gmail.com, or on Instagram. Thanks for your support. More vids coming up. Interviews too.